the little girl in you feels like this kid is trying to hurt you. You see what I'm saying? So the importance of this conversation is to understand that intimacy that comes in the relationship with ourselves in order to be the best parent for our children. If we don't understand the pain related to the disruption we experience in the parental relationship, if we don't understand the pain that we've experienced from our past trauma, if we don't understand the messages that we've gotten from our past trauma, then they will show up as we're raising our children, and our children will suffer, and we will repeat the generational curse, the very things that we did not want to repeat. Hey y'all, how you doing? Welcome back. As you know, you're listening to Xpose H.E.R, the show that brings seductive conversations about trauma and intimacy to the forefront. I'm your host, Juliet Wise, and I'm so happy you're here with me today. So today's conversation I feel really excited about because it took a long time for me to be able to put words to this part of my story, right? But let me tell you a little bit about what we're talking about. Today we're talking about why I couldn't dream anymore. The silent wounds of unexpected motherhood. Yo, this conversation is so important for me and for you. You see, there were so many years that I could not put words to it. I didn't feel safe enough to put words to it. Then I started thinking about it. I know that I am not the only person that has experienced these forms of wounds. And sometimes those messages in our head say, okay, how could you have unexpected motherhood if you knew you were having sex and that could be a possibility? But you know where those messages come from? They come from people in our environments. They come from judgment. They come from lack of understanding. They come from a lack of safe places. Right? A lack of communication. Of course, we know that sex comes with pregnancy, but wasn't always planned that we wanted to be a mother at that time. So let's talk about it today. One thing I got here with me today, this blanket is so comfortable, y'all. And sometimes we need a little bit of comfort in spaces that cause so much pain. It's also a weighted blanket. I wanted to tell you that because you need to get you one. Sometimes you have this weight on you. It brings a level of comfort that you need in moments of challenging conversations, right? I want to ask you, have you ever felt like you were ready to step in something beautiful, but your heart was still bruised from past things you've experienced? Have you become a mother while still healing that little girl inside? That's some of us, right? And it can be really challenging when that's been our experience because we're learning along the way. There's this idea that once we become mothers, we already know how to nurture. We already know how to connect. We already know what safety is. Or when we become a mother, when I became a mother, it's I should already know this. I don't even know if that's fully the truth because I became a mother and had to survive a space that I wasn't prepared for. What I mean by surviving a space that I wasn't prepared for is that I had all these different plans for my life. I had graduated with my master's degree. I had planned to work a little bit and then move back to Europe. And I'd done all the things to protect myself from getting pregnant throughout the years. I was having sex, but I'd done all the things to protect myself from getting pregnant. That included staying on birth control, and really, in the 12th grade, getting an abortion because I was determined to reach my goals because I wanted to find a level of freedom that I felt would come by me reaching my goals educationally so I could reach my goals financially. And I could be free to make decisions for my own life. I could be free to chart my own path. And that, but maybe in me charting my own path, I would be able to connect and find love and be just free, y'all. That is a very big component of my life and my experience. I've been searching for freedom forever. And the beautiful thing is that in this season of 44, I was about to say 43 because I always be messing up my age, I'm finally finding that level of freedom. The question I have is, what happens when motherhood meets unresolved trauma? What do we do then? What if we don't even have the ability because of the circumstances to be present with the unresolved trauma, to even understand how much that is impacting our motherhood or our pregnancy or our preparation for motherhood or our being thrown into motherhood without a plan for how that would look when we became moms? This episode is for women who have carried babies while still carrying heartache, for mothers who have cried in silence, for the ones still learning how to be mothers themselves. So as I told you a little bit earlier, before I had my baby, I just finished my master's degree. I felt like I had reached the goal. I felt like I fought for it. So much so that I didn't even know that other girls that I had grown up with that had gone to college had sent their kids to school, their daughters to school, telling them to make sure you pay attention because you may meet your husband and you want to be able to take advantage of that environment because that's the only time you will be in that environment. That wasn't what I learned. What I learned is watch out for your reputation. What I learned for myself, the rule I made for myself, is complete your degree so that you can find freedom because I value freedom. So that you can live life on your own terms, so that you don't have to experience some of the things that you experience in poverty, like living in spaces with roaches or different things like that. You don't have to experience that. You can be under your own space. You can chart your own territory and your own path. And so that was my motivation for completing my degree. So once I completed my degree, and soon after that, maybe a year later, I was pregnant. It was the scariest space of my life. It was the greatest disappointment for me, not that I had my child, but that I had become a single parent. The father was not going to be in her life. He made that adamantly true for me, and that there were so many accusations of me wanting to set him up, wanting to do all these different things. You guys, I don't know if you've ever experienced that level of pain, but it disrupted me in a way that is oftentimes difficult to explain, but I'm going to do good with getting it out here. What it did was it shocked me. It shattered the story that I was writing for myself. And then I had this idea that because this person was my best friend, no, it wasn't my boyfriend or anything like that, but because we had been through so many different trials and ups and downs together, even if we didn't plan a life together, that this wouldn't be a space that I would walk alone. I could tell y'all that that was the greatest disappointment. That was the greatest pain. When I think about the worst part of the memory, it was that. It was the accusation, the meanness, the vileness. And when I thought about that part of my story, I was like, Lord, have mercy. That broke me. It broke me for that time. I'm not broken anymore. But in that brokenness, throughout the years, I've learned to see myself and understand myself differently. I've learned to understand what love actually is. I've learned where my lack of understanding regarding love was. I've learned how I connected to this male figure in a way that was not healthy because I had this undying loyalty, this space of ride or die for this friend. So I expected them to have that same loyalty for me. And so when that wasn't there, I was just devastated. And when I think about the little girl in me and the little girl that didn't truly understand attachment, the little girl who idealized this person, who put him on this high level, although he was a kid himself, because that was the only thing I knew, right? If you've been watching the episodes before, I didn't have my father present. I didn't have a lot of men in front of me. And this person showed a lot of strength, ideally, showed a lot of masculinity. And in my understanding of relationships, even like I said, there were plenty of ups and downs in our friendships, I still believed that the same type of loyalty I provided, the same type of understanding of character that I provided would be reciprocated. And as I've learned over the years, it's like, what reality was I living in? And I can't beat myself up and don't anymore, but I didn't realize I was living in a reality of this little girl who had no understanding. I didn't know then that I was seeking for more than this person could provide in a friendship. I was seeking for protection. I was seeking dependability. I was seeking security. I was seeking an understanding of masculinity. I was seeking an understanding of how to navigate life in the space of a man. And I thought that this was what we had in this friendship. We weren't in a romantic relationship, but we were friends, or what my understanding of friends were. And I'm just learning in years now that I didn't truly understand what friendship was. I didn't truly understand what it meant to truly be connected and what it meant to measure an understanding of reciprocity in a friendship. As I told you, I was in this idealized mindset. So when there were challenges that were experienced in that friendship, I always was in the space of forgiveness, not realizing that this was because I needed that connection. And when you think about it, that's literally too much pressure to put on somebody else. That's too much weight to put on somebody else who's also young, And the reason I'm telling you this story is because it's important for us to know the things that we experience in our story and how it impacted, like I say, us being in time capsules of pain. But when we go back and we understand, okay, yes, that pain was real. Yes, it was a level of betrayal that I've never imagined. Yes, it was a level of hurt. And in my healing, I'm understanding that I wish I would have known what friendships were. I wish I would have known what sacred connection was. Now, when I say I wish I would have known, is that a way of beating myself up? No, it's talking to that inner teenager, that inner young adult and saying, you did not know what safe connection was. And if you would have known what safe connection was, I'm sure you would have known how to honor yourself in a different way, right? When we talk about somatic experiences, what I valued myself on for years was being a good friend. Did I recognize that value was based on me giving what I wanted to experience? No, of course not then. But I valued the level of loyalty I provided to my friends. I still value it. I valued the level of show up, the level of me walking you through even times where you effed up, right? I valued it. And so when I saw the realities of what the friendship was once I got pregnant, it was such a disruption, you guys. Like a disruption in a way that it made my stomach hurt. It made me sick my whole pregnancy. And honestly, it silenced my voice because I felt like his strength overpowered my ability to stand up for myself in so many ways throughout the years. I kept wanting to explain, or I wanted to let people know I would never set someone up, or I wanted to just scream, but my voice was so silent. And the crazy part was the pregnancy wasn't the thing that made me feel defeated. It was the rejection. It was the accusation. It was people that I loved in my environment believing it. It was the change in relationships. And when I think about that, those things impacted me so much because of my desire for acceptance, my need for connection. Let me tell y'all why this conversation, it had been so difficult, because I felt ashamed for not knowing that this could be done to me. I felt embarrassed for caring so much about someone and not realizing that that care or that loyalty or that sense of protection or that understanding of history in the friendship, knowing the traumas I've experienced, knowing the abortion I experienced in high school, thinking in my brain, going back to idealization, that because he understands this, surely he would never think that I would set him up. Surely he would know that I'm only choosing to keep my baby because I recognize that I've completed college. I have gotten my own apartment. I'm in my career. And when I had my abortion in my senior year in high school, I could not do that. Well, I believed I couldn't. For one, finally actually, because I became president of my senior class. I was at a Christian school. A teacher had said to me one time I'd be pregnant before I was 15 or an adult. And so when I had that abortion my senior year in high school, I was able to justify my reasons. And let me be clear, I don't want to say I was able to justify my reasons because I had shame related to it. I believed it was necessary for me to have that abortion. But I also feel like I was able to, in my mind, say, okay, you haven't reached your goals yet. So you need to do this in order for you to get to your next level. That was a decision I made for myself. And I'm okay with that decision I made for myself, right? And so, but as I go on into the conversation, once I became pregnant after my master's degree, I felt like I'm in a position where I can handle this financially. I know this person is upset. I know this person has all these accusations, but I felt like because we're friends, he'll eventually know who I am. He'll see the character that I've had all these years and know that I would never set him up. And I lived in this space of dreaming that would happen for a long time. And it didn't. And that was the most hurtful thing, because combined with that, the idea of becoming a mom, once I had gone through that pain and realized things weren't going to shift, and I accepted that I was going to have my child. As I got later on into the pregnancy, I became afraid, so much so that when I had the ultrasound and they told me that I was going to have a girl, I cried. Like, I really boo-hooed, and I was crying because I was afraid, because at that time I had registered in my mind that sexual abuse only happens to girls. And I was like, will I be able to protect my child? I don't have him. He's not going to be her protector. I'm grieving the fact that she will not have a father in the same way I did. I am running through things in my mind with messages from other people about, well, you knew this, you knew that. People say all kind of stuff that is, I don't know, maybe a projection of their own whatever. I can't put words to it, but it's not mine to carry. But it was a heavy time because I was so afraid that I would not be able to protect my little girl. And I felt like just rock bottom. Amazing thing about God is, in that rock bottom though, I never wanted to give her up. I never wanted to go back. But one thing, because I was in so much pain, I remember praying, and I would put both hands on the side of my belly and I would be like, Jesus, this hurts in a way that I can't imagine. I'm throwing up all the time. Anytime I think about these circumstances, please keep my baby healthy. And I remember praying, Lord, put an angel on each side of her in my womb that will protect her when I'm in pain, that will make her happy, and that she will come into this world a happy little girl in spite of the pain that I'm experiencing. Y'all, when we don't understand real connection, we build relationships off of a fantasy. That means friendships too. That doesn't even just mean romantic relationships. We build relationships off of a fantasy. We idealize people and we put them up really high. And in that time, in the midst of our trauma, in the midst of our understanding of relationship, we don't recognize that we're doing that. And so then when they do things that go outside of our expectation or our understanding of relationship, it is a great disappointment. It is like a fall. Like, if you could feel that in your body, it's like a fall to the ground. And I had to learn that. I had to understand that I built this friendship out of a fantasy of what I needed. It took me years to understand that. Years to understand how my lack of understanding with connection would even hypothesize that this person and people connected to him would show up. So when we talk about that fear of having a daughter, y'all, that thing ran deep for me. Because when I was in therapy, when I was a younger child, when I had experienced my sexual abuse, two things that therapists said to me. One was, are you afraid that you will be attracted to women because you experienced sexual abuse? That's a whole nother episode. That was confusing in and of itself. Honestly, that has helped me to be more intentional in my space of therapy and what I speak into people's lives the best that I can. Because it planted a seed in me of doubt, of wondering, okay, does sexual abuse equal that I'll do this? The other message was, and I don't know if this was from the therapist, it may have been, but I remember it logging on my nervous system, was that most people who are sexually abused will perpetrate. And so it scared me, it petrified me, and made me feel like I would eventually hurt my daughter. And so it impacted a level of distance that I had from her for a while until I worked through it in therapy, because I didn't know if that was true or not. And I had to literally go through therapy while I was raising her to understand what that actually is. And that's not true. There are people who perpetrate as a result of sexual abuse, but you have to be very present and in prayer and have discernment when you're in this space, because especially when you've experienced trauma, you don't realize how subconsciously you can project your experience onto your clients or the people that you're helping, whether that's coaching, that's speaking, that's different things. You gotta be careful with what you speak into people's lives. So what I realized is I overcompensated a lot. Because my daughter's father was not there, I overcompensated, and sometimes I didn't know how to handle my emotions. There were times where, oh God, I thank God for the restoration in me and my daughter's life, but I would yell, or I'd be frustrated, or I'd be hurt, and I could not navigate. You know, sometimes your children, they're born and they have the genes of their parents, and so some things would remind me of him, and I didn't know that then, but I would become angry and I would become hurt, and I was hurt by her, and she was just a little girl growing up. And I had to work in my therapy to understand that you don't have your healing. And so with you not having your healing, you can automatically the little girl in you feels like this kid is trying to hurt you. You see what I'm saying? So the importance of this conversation is to understand that intimacy that comes in the relationship with ourselves in order to be the best parent for our children. If we don't understand the pain related to the disruption we experience in the parental relationship, if we don't understand the pain that we've experienced from our past trauma, if we don't understand the messages that we've gotten from our past trauma, then they will show up as we're raising our children, and our children will suffer, and we will repeat the generational curse, the very things that we did not want to repeat. So it's important for us to hear these things and for you to understand what parts of it you possibly may relate to, but other ones you may not, because this is how we connect intimately. Yes, I talk a lot about sexual intimacy, but what we have to understand is our true freedom comes from picking at the corners, exposing those corners, however that exposure looks like for you, so that you can get that freedom and that healing that you need to show up in your sexual relationships, your emotional relationships, your spiritual relationships, your parental relationships. What other relationships? Your relationship with God, your relationship with family, right? It's important to understand these things, y'all, because this is what impacted my motherhood. I don't know what's impacted your motherhood, but I just want to share this with you about mine. For a long time, I felt rejected. I had surmised in my mind that everybody believed the narrative. You know, what's a real vulnerable point, y'all, is for years I kept evidence because I had taken the morning after pill. Let me tell you something. Y'all better check it out, because I had taken that morning after pill. And I found out like 6 weeks later that I was still pregnant. Honestly, though, I didn't take the morning after pill thinking I was pregnant. I took the morning after pill because I knew I had sex. And I knew I wasn't ready for a child, right? But then as time went on, I remember being in my job, a coworker saying to me, "Juliet, you pregnant?" I was like, "No, the hell I'm not." He was like, "Yes, you are." And when I took those pregnancy tests, y'all, if you could see my floor, it felt like those commercial with syringes. Took like 20 tests because I did not believe it. Why? Because I had taken that morning after pill. For years, because of that accusation, I kept the receipt of taking that morning after pill because I wanted to prove that I didn't set him up. I wanted to prove to the world. I don't know why it was so important to prove. It was still that struggle with attachment, still that understanding that I would never set you up, still that desire for him to know that this would not be anything. It took me years to recognize no matter what you did, no matter what you said, the understanding of the relationship that you desired or hoped for in this friendship was not there. And that's not his fault or your fault. You both had your own trauma and dealing with it in different ways. However, it took me years to heal from that. And I think I finally threw it away, but I had it for years. I'm talking about years, like 10 years, because I felt like I needed to prove something. I felt like there were so many people who believed this, so many people in the rumor mill. And you guys, this caused so much pain, so much pain. And I thought that maybe if I could prove it, then my daughter wouldn't have to be without a father. That's really hard. That's the pain that sometimes comes with unexpected motherhood. When someone accuses you of something like that, the shame cuts deep, especially when you don't know your voice, especially when you don't know how to stand up for yourself. It had me questioning myself. Like, did I ever say anything like that? Did I ever lead to anybody to believe that I would set someone up? The shame ran so deep and the hurt ran deep. The primary emotions were the shame, the hurt though, the rejection that ran deep. But it impacted how I led my life. Yes, I still went after my goals. Yes, I was still doing things, but the way I dreamed was different. All I could see was my survival from day to day. All I could see was one step in front of the other, showing up for this child, allowing my tears to flow at night, hurting in my stomach, hurting in my body, trying to prove things to people coming back, telling me stories. You know, people love to come back and tell you stuff about your experiences or about, I don't know, him or whatever. And I had to survive through all of that. And it was painful. It was torturous until the day that I decided that you don't have to continue to survive this. You don't have to accept those messages from other people. You don't have to do that. And the only way that you're going to heal, I remember Auntie of mine said to me, "Juliet, you're going to have to get up." She said, "You're going to have to get up, because if you don't get up, you're going to project this onto your child. And she needs more. She deserves more. You have so much more to give her." Y'all, I didn't know this part of my story mattered so much, but it does. It does. I didn't realize how much it was impacting me, blocking myself from connecting in other relationships. I didn't realize how it impacted my shame, my lack of trust in myself and trusting people. But the crazy thing is, I do realize a lot of things now, and I'm finding my voice. I'm finding my freedom. I'm finding my healing. I'm finding standing up for myself. And the reason why I feel like it's important for me to stand up for me on here is so you can know how to stand up for you. And it doesn't have to look the same. But the thing about it is when we stand up for ourselves, y'all, we're standing up for that little girl inside. And we're teaching her that you deserve to be stood up for. We're teaching her that you deserve to be loved. We're teaching her that you get to experience something different, that you don't have to carry the weight of that trauma. We're reframing and rewiring her system to allow her to smile, to breathe, and to be free, and not to carry the responsibility of people who've caused you pain. So here's what I want to tell you. You can't rewrite the past, but you can own your own story. You can cry over the innocence and the lack of understanding that you didn't have. You can stop shrinking to protect others. Learn to protect yourself. You can feel shame and still feel freedom. And you don't have to carry shame, but you can put words to it. Well, one thing is, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid of my voice. I'm not afraid of my experience. I'm not afraid of being a bad mom. And I'm not afraid of what people think. Why is there freedom in that, y'all? Because when you write your own narrative, you don't have to worry about all those things connected to it anymore. With your healing, not in an unhealthy way where you're just like making up things and you're not being present with yourself, but you're giving yourself permission to know your story, and that is intimate connection with you. That is what these beginning episodes of Xpose H.E.R. are about, is me kind of giving you a vlog of my story so that wherever you feel comfortable with your story being exposed, even if it's just to you, because sometimes we live in a fantasy and we allow ourselves to believe that fantasy. And in us allowing ourselves to believe that fantasy, we don't get our healing because we've lived in this space of disassociation and a narrative that we needed to have to survive. Well, I want to tell you, it's time to stop surviving in that fantasy. It's time to stop surviving in that narrative if you truly desire connection first with you. This part of my story isn't tidy. It's not pretty, but it's mine. All parts of my story are mine, and I get to share it however I choose to. But in sharing it and in healing, sharing it first with my therapist, sharing it first with myself, it has saved my life. It has helped me to break the time capsule and to release my life. Because what we don't understand is that our pain holds us back from our purpose at times. Because if we get stuck in that time capsule, it makes it hard for us to get to our purpose. I want to invite you to write that long letter to yourself. I want you to talk to yourself about if you haven't been honest with yourself about your experience, or you haven't been able to understand things connected to it. I want you to let your body weep. I want you to let your body exhale. Let me tell you something. You deserve that. You deserve to fight. You deserve to be free. You deserve to let go. So I want to tell you something. Healing is not linear. Your story is still unfolding. You don't have to be perfect to be present. You don't have to have all the answers to be enough. But I want you to know, go find the answers. Find your freedom. Hold on to yourself. Grow yourself. Love yourself. Understand first how to connect intimately with you. Because when you learn how to connect intimately with you, you will experience true freedom, true sacred connection, true understanding of connection, true understanding of relationship. So until next time, let's keep it bold, let's keep it sexy, and let's show enough keep it real. I'll talk to you soon.